Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, a brand new video on Marvel Contest of Champions, and while I'm waiting to get a new device and deciding what device is going to be beneficial for me in doing YouTube content, especially when it comes to gaming, I thought I'd delve into a little bit of comic book history and also talk about some kind of game mechanics and character implementation all around regeneration. So why make a video on this? Well, someone put it in the comments and I thought, well, this would be an interesting video to go on why certain champions get regeneration, why some champions are missing regeneration, and just really talking about it as a whole, because some characters get it with regards to making the character a lot better, some get it as an added bonus and they're a bit OP, so let's just delve into it. So an amazing large plethora of champions get regeneration, whether it's a very quick regen and it's instant like characters like Wolverine, or it's a little bit longer in kind of shape and form of Peter Parker, Steve Rogers. There's a big difference between instant regeneration and prolonged regeneration, also with regards to abilities. So if you're applying a regen from your ability, sometimes it can hamper other abilities being able to use. So you may find that if characters like Kamala Khan or Danny Rand losing of chi and also metamorphosis kind of abilities, the idea that whatever you're channeling one way, you're then hampered by another is a cool aspect, but isn't really a Marvel Contest of Champions. Okay, so let's look class by class at some characters and the ideas behind regen and where it really comes from their physiology. If we're looking at close link to humans, then look no further than mutants. And these are the guys that closest link. Obviously, the idea behind skin cell regeneration and kind of like general regeneration from a molecular level. These are the kind of the closest links to that, and we got characters that do that like Wolverine and X-23. Obviously X-23 is a clone of Wolverine. Wolverine himself has got an intense regen and it's a very, I'd say, instant. It's only obviously through prolonged age and poisoning from the adamantium that slowed up his regeneration factor. I'm not sure if you could say that if the metal was in him that indeed it would slow down his regeneration ability, or in fact that's just part of age. And obviously taking X-23 as an example, yeah, putting on regen onto Deadpool was a surefire way to get a character some regeneration. So you can see that there's cloning potential, and cloning obviously can happen in any kind of case for regeneration to any character. But it's more than likely it's mutant because it's based on like mutation. The other thing is Rogue's lifesteal. So we've got this life stealing ability. We've then got the healing factor from tissue repair, but also with characters like, for example, Cable, we're talking at a level of kind of augmentation and based on poisoning, that the character had technovirus and was able to regen, have a regen factor for that. So hey, there's this good kind of amalgamation of great mutant abilities for regen. Mystical powers are kind of a given. You can channel in, say, reversing effects when you're talking about the Eye of Agamotto, when a lot of characters actually kind of benefit from that when we're talking about Dr. Voodoo and Doctor Strange, and to a degree, Mordo. So you could argue with that, although Mordo is something, yes, not really too sure about that for regen. And we'll talk about that a bit later on. But for the point of life stealing, life force, kind of absorbing like pains and able to kind of reverse effects, mystical class seems fairly likely based on the power pool they can tap into. Skill classes are pretty much a no-go based on the fact that there's no kind of changes to things like physiology. You could argue with regards to suits making more powerful, but then that's going too far into the tech line, and we'll talk about tech in a moment. When it goes over to science, science is, well, this is another arguing point, and we will come on to it a bit later on. This is kind of a delayed regeneration, so from the point of it being more in a battle situation in game, you wouldn't see it very instant. It would be more a prolonged thing, so I can see why that hasn't been something that's been put into the game. Though I do need to talk about Hulk, but I will talk about that in a moment. Cosmic are extraterrestrials to a degree. They would say that they are the normal ones and we are the foreign ones, because we know we don't bear any powers as humans. The next thing is that regeneration is fairly likely based on physiologies of different species across the galaxy, across the universe, and you could say in extra dimensions, but that's going a bit too far. However though, with characters like Angela, Groot, to name a couple, there is fairly logical regeneration needs to be. We've got Phoenix, which again, you know, that's again a logical thing that she would get regeneration. These kind of rising from the ashes and the kind of the rise of the Phoenix, yeah, seems pretty likely. Next thing is Venompool is kind of this kind of cross-worldy, batshit crazy, absorby type thing, which yeah, I see why it gets it. There's no arguing that. It's just not this thing where you say it's a fairly logical thing. This is a species from another planet. Though you could say that Symbiote itself is a species from another planet, dimension, whatever. And the way that people and kind of species from different planets evolve is that maybe on their home world, that whatever was there, maybe it's more intense, more kind of prone to kind of injuries or things are more severe. The way that the human race has things like antibiotics, there could be like natural inbuilt antibiotics to the cosmic body, which allow them to sort of avoid a lot of these things by being very kind of instant regeneration. Tech is all about technological advancement as well as support. We're talking like aiding recovery, but from a protection side of things. So the suit itself, or because most of them are suits, there's kind of like outer protection. And if we're talking about nanotech and things that kind of self-repair, then this is pretty logical based on that and the way things have evolved, that you need to create armor that repairs itself and can aid that particular tech. We're talking an Iron Man suit, in particular Ultron, Howard the Duck. You know, these are kind of characters that you're going to see regen on based on, well, Howard the Duck is a question mark based on the fact that his creation around a mech suit puts him in a safe place. But yeah, that is a bit of a fine line. Ultron himself, yes, nanotech, and with regards to the composite of his technology, means that that regeneration is fairly logical. And due to technological advancement, you're going to see things that are futuristic, and these kind of future worlds like Earth 2099, in particular Punisher, where you're going to see some regeneration. If they put in, I don't know, Spider-Man 2099, would that suit get self-regeneration and be a tech? Fairly likely that that would be the case, but only time will tell. That being said, there's a lot of kind of questionable champions that get regeneration, and some which, you know, you could argue the point Mordo gets regeneration after the L3, and there's like it's a chance with getting it. I mean, I've had it once where I got 3 stacks of regen. Total luck. But the fact remains he still got it. However, though, you could say that if he wasn't using Neo Wakamoto, which in this kind of sense he isn't, he shouldn't really get any kind of regeneration healing factor. Let's now look at the justifications of why characters in the game should get regeneration, apart from the fact of implementing it from a source material aspect. So if we take Mordo as an example and the application of armor rating, the armor rating at this 440 level is 10.8%. Now, I think a lot of justification for what Kabam does is based on replacing champions with bad armor in the Mystic class and giving them regeneration to kind of say, hey, let's kind of compensate that with this kind of regeneration for this champion, even though it's difficult for that. A lot of champions in the Mystic class and a few others do get regeneration, but at the expense of having very low armor rating. This is then continued on with this other 440 Dr. Voodoo, which has again 10.8% for armor rating. Though a strong regen at the start does make this champion a lot more pleasing to people for playing purposes. And again with this 440 magic. As you can see, 10.8% seems to be a very current thing for the Mystic line. And obviously it's pretty obvious that there's no kind of armor system based on, say, physical armor. So we're talking about metal here. So that rating is pretty correct. It's only when you switch over to things like tech where the armor rating increases. If we then go over to a tech like Iron Man, you'll see here that the armor rating is 13.4. So there's an increase there. Yeah, so 330 and getting a stronger armor rating. This obviously is based on the kind of mech suit, the kind of outer casing suit, the nanotech, which is then shared with other characters like Ultron, and also we've got a mech suit for Howard the Duck and an outer suit for characters like Punisher 2099. So the real point is here, If you've got more of a kind of a clothed outer garment and you're fighting, then your armor rating is going to be quite bad. But at the same kind of token, if you're in a suit, then your armor rating is going to increase. So it's really nice to see a good amount of regen. I think on the Mystic side, it's signature abilities that make the character better for that aspect. And when it's tech, it's all about the regen, the armor, and the base stats being quite good. So now that we've justified the case of why certain champions get regen and some don't, it's time to look at the kind of near misses and the other champions that really should be getting it based on the physiology, their kind of background, their comic book history, and all that stuff in between. So in particular, Carnage. Carnage is meant to have regenerated healing factor and doesn't at the moment, which does need to be changed because the character, like we've just kind of discussed with Tech and with Mystic, is that his stats aren't particularly good. So we're looking at a very low armor rating to begin with. Like on this 3-star, 6.5. Now, it's not particularly brilliant with that. Where this character comes into his own is his intense amount of bleed, and critical damage can be quite helpful for the specials, which we'll see in a future video. Unfortunately, I've not got an Archangel to show you, but take it from me, Archangel should retain some sort of regenerative factor. Similar with Cable with regards to the techno-organic virus, the idea about self-healing should be self-evident by that. So it's a bit disappointing not to see it. Hopefully that can change in the future. The Miss Marvel line is similar with regards to regenerative healing factor, and it should be important that Kamala Khan retains this. And the way that I think Kabam could do this is that the character gains weakness. Why? Based on the comic book facts, the character can regen, but at the expense of being able to use her abilities. So it's like saying that Kamala Khan, I don't know, close to losing all her health, gets a kind of regen factor, but at the same time she is weakened. The same way that if you do the L3 with a Iron Patriot, that you indeed get an armor break reduction, so you can basically get hit to shit. The idea behind this is that it just kind of fits in quite well that the character's not able to use morphing ability quite as much, so therefore a weakness would be then, or a fatigue, which would obviously appear in the top left hand corner, and you get to regen, I don't know, a chunk of your health in order to continue the battle. The character's not good at the moment and has been severely underrated by the community, so adding something like this would mean that the character would be a teensy-wincy little bit better. Our final champion to talk about is Hulk. Now, a lot of people will say that he should get some sort of regenerative factor. A lot of people will say that's going to make him too OP. But there are other aspects to this and other parts of the argument. Now, obviously, the character can get an intense amount of bleed, and when he's bled, he bleeds a lot. But the idea behind him getting regeneration, it wouldn't be like huge and should be there all the time. It should be something that is kind of a little bit gradual, so it's only a little bit of regen. I don't know, I can see why Kabam didn't put it in. From an authentic point of view, it should be in, but the extent of how much regen the character gets would just make any character OP. But the idea behind some physical resistance and maybe a point of being indestructible, the same way that Luke Cage is, would just tie everything really well to some sort of implementation from, again, the source material, because source material is vitally important for us to get an idea of where these characters are coming from and what they're getting. Before I go anywhere, I just want to point out that the science grouping does have some aspects of regeneration, but it's not implemented in the game for very good reasons. As spoke about earlier, the idea behind Captain America, Spider-Man, and even Abomination, close to that argument with Hulk, the idea behind it taking several days to regen is another factor which won't go into the game. You can put in the game a very kind of snappy regeneration. There's stories in comic book history of Spider-Man losing his eyesight and being able to repair within 2 days. But most of the regeneration ability for science will happen between 2 to 4 days. So we're talking about severe breaks, we're talking about organ failure, and that taking you know, up to 4 days to a week potentially to repair that. So I can see why Kabam didn't add that within the game, because it just doesn't work. It's all about the battle itself and being very kind of quick and snappy. That being said, my final kind of thought on this is regeneration. Is it distributed and done correctly? And the answer is no, but it may have to do. The reasons being, you can make some champions too overpowered as a result, and yes, some champions are underpowered. I do think there's other characters that need to look into, like the idea behind what I said about weakness and fatigue of ability, which then allows for regeneration, similar to Danny Rand as a Mystic, as Iron Fist, and Kamala Khan as a Cosmic. The idea between, you know, losing part of your ability or kind of weakening your ability to then get regen back is a cool aspect and can help some very underrated and not very good champions within the game. So I throw this over to you guys, and let me know in the comments below, what are your thoughts on regeneration, or maybe in particular what characters? Do you find that some characters should get it? Not? Maybe it's something we can put together and put on a forum post headed by myself with your help, and we can, like, maybe tell Kabam, hey, look at some of these champions and kind of improve their healing factors. So thanks very much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that like button, subscribe for more, maybe share it with a friend, and I shall catch you on the flip side. Happy healing. Bye bye.